Hey, how you doing? I am Dr. Canute White, and you're watching Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. But this is Learn a Bit, and we just want you to learn a bit as we teach a bit on Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast, looking at some academic topics occasionally. So this is basically our lecture segment, yeah, and you know, I realize you are looking at if those who are watching, right, and our YouTube channel will see a Jamaican flag, right? But basically, I will be talking management today. I will be looking at dynamics of diversity in organizations, and I just put that there. And naturally, you guys know that I'm Jamaican. I just put that there as a sort of a linkage to diversity. This diverse world, and out of many one people is our motto in Jamaica. So I'm just using that as a preamble. Yeah, but yeah, your professor today is Dr. Canute White, reaching out to you from Florida, where Canute Exploration is actually operating from, right? The channel is Canute Media. Make sure you subscribe, and you share with your friends. Those of you who are students, share it as students, have them subscribe. Yeah, make comment, and if you have a topic you'd like me to look at in psychology, management, leadership, research method, then just send me an email at wradio668 at gmail.com. Those watching will see it on the screen, but those who are listening from their favorite podcasts across the world, it's wradio668 at gmail.com. Let's get into it now. The dynamics of diversity in organization. This is part one. It's a two-part lecture, right? So I'm going into part one, and this is our third in the Learn a Bit and Canute Exploration third lecture in Learn a Bit. We look at attribution theory, and we also looked at this thing about leadership as a combat leader. Yeah, search for it. It's there on the channel. Okay, out of many one people, I said it, the Jamaican motto, right? And it speaks to diversity. But we'll be looking at a number of things in the first part of this lecture, training for culturally competent organization. We're looking at managing diversity as organizational change, right? The three C's of managing diversity, and we'll be looking at evaluation of outcome, and yeah, managing organization cultural competence. Okay, workplace diversity. Yeah, if you look around your workplace, those of you who are working, even your school, you will see that there's a level of diversity within the school as a workplace. Yeah, and naturally, there is a thing we call workplace diversity. So, workplace diversity is really the variety of differences in among the people in the organization. Yeah, there are differences among people in the organization. There's this diversity as it relates to the people in the organization in terms of race, gender, the ethnic group, age, personality, sexual orientation, and so the tenure. Um, there are persons who are there 10 years. There are persons who just come to the organization 2, 3 years. Yeah, and the organizational functions different. Different departments and persons who have to perform tasks with different as it relates to different knowledge, different competence, and different levels of education, background, and even more. Right. So that encompasses the diversity within organizations. Right. So when you talk about workplace diversity or organizational diversity, those are the things that that composite the diversity within organizations within the workplace. But look, not everybody understand how to deal with diversity within organizations, and that is where a lot of challenges, conflict emerges in organizations because we don't know how to deal with people who are different from us. different educational background, different social background, yeah, different race, right? Different personality, right? We have a challenge dealing with that because there's a thing called ethnocentrism, speaks to the belief that your culture is unique and everybody must operate, must act as how you behave, how you act based on your culture. No. Psychology of individual differences. I talked about that a bit in my lecture on attribution theory. So, guys, look, we need to understand that there might be a level of training for culturally competent organization, right? So we need to SWOT analyze what's going on within the organization, right? Look at the necessities for meaningful diversity training and the development within your organization so that you can bring your employees, bring the persons in your organization up to par with how to deal with diversity. And it will reduce conflict and naturally improve the labor productivity within the organization. So there is this shift that we need in organization from ethnocentric, yeah, views, and we talk about ethnocentrism, right? Oh, everybody must behave like me. This is my culture, and I think that everybody must have the same culture. This is how I behave at this age in terms of my age groups. I believe that everybody should behave like this. Oh, I've been in this organization for years, and I believe that persons who just come to this organization should operate like me, should have that sort of a view. No. So therefore, we need this shift from this ethnocentric view that everybody is like us and will be like us in the organization. So those of you who are in the organization thinking that everyone should have your cultural views and your mindset should think again, because organizations have diversity. Yeah, there's this dynamics of diversity going on within organizations. And those of you who was not trained, British trained, will wonder what I mean. You might say diversity, but when you hear I said diversity, the same thing. It's a matter of I was trained in the British system. So please bear with me on that, right? So also in terms of training, the importance of training in organization and it relates to diversity is because there's this need for cultural, non-judgmental approach in organizations. Don't judge a person because of the different culture, right, that they might exert, right, or exhibit. Because look, culture is not only about ethnicity. Culture is not only about race. Culture is also about age. Yeah. Culture is also about, as we talk about, the years of service that you have spent in the organization. Those who are long-time employees of the organization will develop a certain culture or subculture within the organization. And later we'll look at organizational culture, right? And that is driven by the leadership of the organization. But persons who are of certain age in the organization will develop this subculture, right? So there's a need for non-judgmental approach as it relates to culture, right? It's very important that is looked at, and therefore diversity training is important within an organization. Leaders, I'm hoping that you're listening to this because there is a need for diversity, cultural diversity seminars, workshops, right, in your organization. Think about it. And I'm saying to you, culture is not about race, not about ethnicity, it's about age culture, right? Tenure culture, right? The length of time people spend in the organization, those subculture, yeah. It's about that. It's about background culture, yeah. So you need to have that sort of training in the organization that speaks to cultural diversity. And there's this thing that paradigms changes, and we need to identify paradigms for how organizations currently address diversity. So, how do your organization currently address diversity? Yeah, and we understand diversity, right? Workplace diversity. It's as we say, it's about age, culture. It's about age, culture. It's about ethnicity, racial culture, and tenure culture and all of that. But how do you deal with that? So you need to consider the problems in your organization. Look at what's going on in your organization. It's related to cultural conflict, right? And this thing about how persons who are there a long time view persons who just come to the organization with a certain level of innovation, and therefore it creates a conflict. Look at it, and it speaks to SWOT analysis in finding out, analyze what's going on in your organization as it relates to diversity and the challenges that happen there. The discrimination and the fairness paradigm is one of the things that you also need to look at. So focus on having a minority included composition um, to be compliant with affirmative action, right? Look at the problem there. What is going on in terms of minority? And minority, I tell you, even if you're whatever country you're listening from, take race out of your head, take ethnicity out of your head. It's a part of the whole diversity thing, but it's diversity is more than that. And I keep reiterating, diversity include age, the tenure in the organization, and so on. Anything that there, it's different, a lot of differences, several types, several levels, right? So think of it like that, and therefore there's a need to look at that discriminating feedback, right, that is being exerted within the organization because of such diversity, and assess the access and the legitimacy paradigm which focus on the matching the demographic, right, with constituent group as a competitive strategy, right? It can be exploitative, right? It means that it's a type of um, not innovative, sorry, right? You're not exploring, but it's something that, okay, fine, right? The demographic that is there, right? Try to blend them, have this blend within the organization as it relates to the demographic, right? And we're not talking about only age demographic, right? So think about that. Very, very important that you look at training. That's what I'm getting at within your organization as it relates to diversity and the dynamics of the organization in diversity. Again, we look at the non-problematic. Those things that I've talked about can be problematic, but I'm going to now look at the non-problematic challenges that you might have to consider in coming up with some sort of training, or to consider to determine the need for training, cultural competent training in the organization. I am Dr. Canute White. You're listening to Canute Exploration. Learn a bit segment. Just want to teach a bit and have you learn a bit. And we are looking at dynamics of diversity in organizations. Yeah, just talking a bit about that. Your lecturer, as I said, your professor is Canute White, Dr. Canute White. Yours truly. Thanks for listening. And let me continue. Non-problematic uh, approach, non-problematic um, considerations, right? Consider the learning and effectiveness paradigm, the values, personal and cultural experiences of members, and what they bring to the organization. Look, everyone in your organization has something to offer the organization. Everyone in your organization can contribute to the mission, the goals of your organization. So you have to consider it from that. Those who you think are pitfalls fall short in aspects of the procedures, right? Training, training, training. And this is where falling short could happen again in cultural diversity, and therefore, as we are discussing, there's a need for training. So, go ahead and train people, train. Yeah. So training is very important. So those value that persons have, those personal values, those cultural experience, and I can't stop reiterate as I go through that cultural doesn't only mean racial or ethnical, but cultural means the subculture as it relates to age, the tenure of persons in the organization, and the background of people, right? So people come with from different social background and develop this sort of a subculture within the organization. So therefore, see what you can harness, the good you can harness from those culture, from those subcultures, right? And integrate it, institutionalize it, as we would say, in organizational learning. Institutionalize it within the organization. So best it can fit within the mission of your organization and the growth of your organization. Envision paradigm. Yeah. This is basically be committed to the envisioning process of diversity, inclusion. Yeah, include everybody. I mean, I'm expecting that, senior management, I'm expecting you to be inclusive in your approach to leadership. And equity is very important. Accommodation, in terms of the should be a part of the organization goal, right? Because include everybody despite the diversity. Try to include everybody. As I said, training is very important. Bring people up to par so that you can, include them within the organization mission, or towards the procedure, the execution of the organization mission. Therefore, equity is important. Accommodation mean see how best you can accommodate the person in view of the organization, really, because it's all about the organizational goal and bringing people on par to achieve that goal. Because persons are in organizations to help and to support the organization's mission, to work towards the organization missions. So, for identifying and creating a plan, right, with a goal, objective, and action stages involved, you must do your SWOT, right? And that is look at the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as it relates to your organization. Strength and weaknesses internally, opportunities and threats are external aspect of the organization. And organization has two folds, right? Each organization has two folds, the external and the internal environment, right? So think about what's going on out there and what's going on inside the organization. Never disregard the internal environment of your organization. Things happening here inside your organization that will affect your organization just as much as things happening outside your organization that will affect your organization. Very important that you consider that. So, how you manage organization, diversity as organizational change? Because don't fool yourself, organization changes. Yeah, your organization will change as employees change, as people change. Yeah, as people get older, right? As the paradigm shift, as we talk about some paradigm, then organization will change. How do you manage that? It's important that the goal of training is also for the potential organizational diversity change. Yeah, so you train people as you look towards changing the diversity, right? And training for organization and change. So you really train in order to change organization. That's what I'm saying. So when you train people, you really changing the organization. Because look, the organization cannot stand on its own. People in the organization are the organization. So you have to take that into consideration. So why do we train organization for organizational change. Why do we train in light of organizational change? Because there's a need to promote a diverse, multicultural, and global environment within the organization. Hey, those are those are big terms, right? But guess what happens when you train individuals in organizations? You are supposed to be thinking of, are supposed to be aware that the organization will change because of that training or training procedures. So there's a need, as it relates to that, when you do diversity training, right? You really want to promote this diverse multicultural environment. So you're promoting the sort of awareness and acceptance of diversity within your organization, so that each person within your organization can accept diversity, and not only accepting diversity, but understanding the importance of working together within a diverse environment. So you want to promote that multicultural environment and that global environment, because remember, diversity also means persons coming from elsewhere. It depends on the size and the composition of your organization. Persons involved from elsewhere, overseas, different countries, that is, right? And even if you have a virtual organization, you'd want to understand the importance of this as well, and train in consideration of this sort of diversity, this virtual organizational diversity. So so you want to do that when you train for change. Do when you do diversity training for change, organizational change. So one, you do this to promote a diverse, multicultural, and a global environment, and you also do this to promote an a sort of harmony in the diverse society. Because look, if organization A, organization B, and organization C start to do diversity training, culturally diverse training, then what happens? These persons within your organization will be so socialized by your organization, by the effort that you have made, senior management, right? By the effort that you have made in your organization. This will now be moved into the communities, right? And therefore, it is expected that you would have been contributing to a diversely aware society, right? And create some harmony within the within society, and that is good to know that your training will also impact the wider society, and perhaps the wider world. Who knows? So diverse training is important, and I'm talking to the leaders now, the leaders and students who are doing organizational behavior and who are leadership training and management training, because you are the future leader. You will be going out there to lead organizations, and it's important that you understand the importance of diverse training and the dynamics of diversity within an organization. And that's what I'm talking to you about today. I'm Dr. Canute White. You're listening to Canute Exploration, the Learn a Bit segment. Look, you need to manage diversity as organizational change, right? And we talk about that. So the inclusion is important. So you need, it's a matter of including all culture. And I reiterate, yeah, culture doesn't speak to ethnicity and race alone, but the subculture of tenure and persons, the length of time they're in organizations, and the subculture of age group, yeah, generational subculture, and social background subculture that exists within the organization. So this also means an awareness of the bias. Yeah, you need to aware of the bias, and ethnocentrism. We talk about ethnocentrism, a matter of thinking that, okay, everybody must behave like me. My culture supposed to be the culture that I'm seen around, and there shouldn't be any different culture, right? Sort of, right? So you need to be aware of that sort of bias and that sort of ethnocentrism, that sort, sort of a mood, yeah, and and those things create a challenge as it relates to attitude, the attitude that persons have. And I said in a previous lecture that attitude and behavior, two different things. Attitude actually influence behavior, so don't get confused, right? You really don't like the person's behavior, not necessarily the person's attitude that you cannot see, but you can see the behavior, which is an offshoot of the person's attitude. So it means that there must be an awareness of this bias and ethnocentrism, and and also create a barrier for businesses. That will create a barrier for businesses that that bias and ethnocentrism will create a barrier for your business. So you need to to ensure that you take a grip of that through diversity training and understanding of the dynamics of diversity within your organization. It also means that you will be offering quality products and services with this level of diversity awareness and competence, competence within an organization. Then, as I said before, labor productivity would be improved, and trust me, total quality management is what you're dealing with, because guess what happened? Your staff will now be so equipped, right? Mentally, emotionally, right? Socially, so that they will start to produce better products and services because of that ability now to work as a team without conflict as it relates to diversity. So it's very important for you to understand that. Let's look at the 3 C's of managing diversity. Because you have to manage diversity. Remember, organizations are diverse. All organizations. Yeah? We talk about what diversity means in terms of age, of social background, and race, ethnicity, tenure. So, how do you manage diversity? Let's look at those 3 C's. I'm Dr. Canute White. You're listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. Yeah, the Learn a Bit segment, want to learn a bit. Yeah, you to learn a bit as we teach a bit. So, the 3 C's in managing diversity: composition, core, and climate. So let's look at composition. It's the recruiting and retention of diverse workforce. Here in the United States, they try to ensure that they recruit a diverse workforce, right? In terms of ethnicity, race, yes, age, social background. So they will ask questions about where you're from, your race and so on, sex, sexual orientation, and that also speaks to diverse sexual orientation within the organization. So they try to do that. So that's one of the way to manage diversity within an organization. Ensure that the composition is diverse, and you try to retain that, right? So if you have less of one aspect of that diversity, you try to improve it, let it involve someone. Take for instance, if you have nobody from you had maybe 3 persons from the inner city in your small organization, right? And 2 of those persons resigns, right? Try to tap it up back, employ 2 more persons from the inner city, right? Try to maintain that sort of diversity, retain it, right? So recruit and retain that diverse workforce. That's the composition. That's one of the C's in managing diversity. The second C is core, CORE. Those listening on your favorite podcast and not seeing the slides, we're showing slides there. So you can, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, you can go to the channel. Canute, CANYOUTH apostrophe S, Canute Media and YouTube, and subscribe, now share, and you'll see. So core, that C means the diversity oriented way the organization should align its products and serve its clients, customers. So while you have a diverse workforce, you need to establish the sort of a culture that will ensure that you align it to your product and the how you serve your clients and customers. So therefore, the client must realize this, that you have a diverse organization in terms of race, age, background, social background, and so on. Yeah, sexual orientation, and so on. The clients, customers must understand this, must realize this, and your service must show this, that hey, yeah, we are diverse, we are inclusive, and trust me, as I said to you, your organization will grow as a result of this. Climate, that's the third C. So you have composition, right? Recruiting and retaining diverse workforce. And core, the diversity oriented way the organization should align its products and serve its customers in terms of diversity. And the third one is, as I said, the climate. That's the atmosphere of inclusion within the organization, despite cultural and the other dimension of diversity. So therefore, yeah, that internal environment must also must also feel the the the, the diversity change, the acceptance or diversity competence within the organization. Yeah, so there must be an atmosphere of inclusion. Yeah, inclusion must be there, and you must go into a department and you see that diversity. Yeah, you must look at management and you see that diversity, right? Yeah, you must look at the auxiliary staff and you see that diversity. You must look in the kitchen staff and the kitchen in the kitchen area, cafeteria staff, and you see that diversity. Yeah, and the clients core we're talking about, though. Yeah, the clients need to see that, the customers need to see that, so that you align that to your service. Hey, you understand what I'm saying? It's very, very important that you look at diversity and manage that diversity within your organization with those three C's. You know, evaluation of this thing. 68% was said, and this is coming from a source that we had at the start of this book, right? Of this lecture. 68% of companies measure diversity and inclusion in their recruiting, right? So Yusuf Bursin said, right, that you know 68% of companies measure diversity and inclusion in their recruiting. So while they recruit, as I said before, try to recruit a diverse and keep that first C, right? Composition, try to keep that. So they during recruitment, right? Recruiting, they try to establish that concept of diversity within the organization, and that is important. So the auditing for organization diversity to measure the outcome, right? Is really system auditing, right? They use that sort of system auditing to do that, and you will be essentially measuring the three C's, right? You recall the three C's, the three C's, composition, right, and the core and climate. So we call those three C: composition, core, and climate. So what I'm saying to you is that during recruiting, they also measure those three C's by ensuring the first one, that they recruit a diverse set to ensure diversity within the workplace. So there's a evaluation outcome, as we said, that we're trying to measure in the composition of the workplace, the core product of the business, and the climate of the organization. Right? So workplace diversity, company needs to focus on, right? What the company needs to focus on as it relates to workplace identity, diversity, what your organization need to focus on as it relates to workplace diversity. One, you must be open-minded. Yeah, be open-minded. I mean, hey, let's work with these people, right? View workers as individuals. Workers are individuals. Yeah. Encourage employees to work in numerous groups. Yes. So if you have a committee, right, make sure each committee in the organization is a diverse community, right? And have open communication as it relates to that. So evaluation of outcome is the system auditing of organization and its level of diversity, and basically we talk about that being done through recruiting, and basically determine whether the organization promote access for all population, right? Diverse population, the white, the black, the Latino, the man from the inner city, the teenagers, adolescents, the middle age, the things like that. So ensure that you promote access for all population, the sexual orientation versus from the LGBTQ community, and try to find out whether the organization is relevant for today's leadership context, right? In terms of leadership, that's all the diversity, right? Empower the clients and workforce, right? Is the organization applicable for solving contemporary problems based on the type of diversity that we have in the organization, right? Establish diverse work group. Very important that you, as we talk about it, committees, establish diverse work group. Address dynamics of organizational compositions, right? Address it right away. As we talked before, if two persons from the inner city or with your organization resign, try to fill that slot with two persons from the inner city, another two persons from the inner city. So yes, O'Brien Robinson 2017 outlined the 5 stages associated with cultural continuum, and this is something I'd like to look at in this part of the lecture as well. I am Dr. Canute White. You're listening to Canute Exploration. Learn a bit, exploring academic topics, and we're looking at the dynamics of diversity in organization. Look, according to O'Brien, right, there are 5 stages associated with cultural continuum. Continuum is from one extreme to the other, and moving from one. It's an imaginary line as it relates to extremity. So cultural destructiveness is the first one. It's the one that is at the lower extreme. Cultural destructiveness. This is the most damaging aspect of cultural continuum, and we talk about cultural not only mean different countries, race, ethnicity, but subculture as it relates to social background and age and tenure in the organization and so on. So cultural destructiveness. This is the most damaging aspect of the cultural continuum, as it presents negative attitude, policies and practices that would be damaging to a culture or any individual in a culture. So The cultural destructiveness in the organization basically speaks to the negative attitude that you give a particular subculture within the organization, and the policies that you would have created within your organization that would have affect that particular cultural group, be it the younger persons. You initiate policies, create policies that would affect them negatively, but not the older persons, right? And persons of one race, more positive, the policy will affect them more positive than the person of the other race, right? Gender, that also speaks to diversity, right? The policy that you have created would be more damaging to the female than the male, or no damage to one gender, but damaging to the other gender. So that speaks to cultural destructiveness within your organization, right? So you have to look at that, the attitude, right, that create that sort of policy and behavior toward a particular culture, and those attitudes that are negative, damaging, unfair, right, to one culture over the other. The next one, so we're moving from the lower end of the continuum, right, which is the lower extreme, to the higher. So the next one is the cultural incapacity. Cultural incapacity. In this stage, cultural differences are not punished. Cultural differences are not punished, nor supported, but ignored by individuals and institutions. So there are cultural differences, right? We're talking about cultural incapacity. So there are cultural differences. But guess what happened? You do not punish these these cultural differences. There's nothing, if there's a person of a younger age, or a person from the inner city, or a person from uptown, or there's no problem with it, right? However, you do not give support to those cultural differences. So it's ignored by the individuals in management, and ignored by the organization, so to speak, right? So it's cultural incapacity. So what? You don't care. They are there now, not punishing them, but we're not supporting it either. The third one, as we move up the continuum from the low extreme to the high extreme, is cultural blindness. This stage, the leaders recognize cultural differences, but colorblind. Yeah, cultural difference, but in other words, then they focus only on some cultural differences. If the system works, then people are good. That sort of attitude. Oh, it works, so we're good. Okay, these are younger persons in the organization. It's working, so we're good. So there's nothing that the management will try to do in order to ensure that there's this awareness and reducing conflict, and diversity training, and look at challenges that may affect the organization based on culture. So therefore there's this blindness. It sort of look like cultural incapacity, because again it's close and we're moving up a continuum. So therefore you will find that those that are close together are close in nature. Cultural pre-competence, and we're trying to move to cultural competence. I'm Dr. Canute White, your professor, and you're listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. But we're exploring academic topics and learn a bit, teach a bit so that you can learn a bit. The podcast is the podcast. We continue, right? So we are trying to look at how, measure organizational cultural competence, and we talk about that continuum, and the fact that according to O'Brien, it starts with cultural destructiveness and cultural incapacity. Then we move to cultural blindness, and then now cultural pre-competence. In this stage, steps are taken, by leadership, recognizing and responding to cultural differences, so and no longer blind or incapacitated, but no, taking step, recognize it and taking step to respond to it, and therefore moving from that naturally, they will reach the final stage of Brian talk about, and that's cultural competence. This final stage of called the cultural continuum. It's merely the ability to instruct students from diverse um, culture, right? To just be aware, right? It is the ability to engage in cross-cultural teaching, as it relates to schools and so on. But it's really this now being aware and taking step and action, sort of action plan as it relates to diversity training. So that's those who are watching. That's the cross-cultural competency continuum. Those of you listening on your favorite podcast platform, go to the YouTube channel, Canute Canute Media, CANYOUTH' Media, and subscribe, share, look at it. So, guess what happened? It's out. I am finished with this, and we have looked at a number of things. The three C's, composition, core, and we have also considered the fact that we can also diverse through the climate, yeah, and then we also and look at how you measure diversity within the organization, and the fact that we train in order to change diversity, to change organization. So we do diversity training, and we basically change organization. And we look at some of the paradigms as it relates to diversity training, and we will be continuing next part of this lecture in dynamics of diversity in organization, where we look at cultural imperatives, tools in action, the multiple perspectives in examining departmental cultural competence, and the centered care, also cultural fluency of organization. Hey, don't miss part 2. Yeah, just keep in touch, keep in tune. Subscribe now, that you won't miss it. That it will come. And if you enjoy this, what I want you to do is send me an email at wradio668@gmail.com. So that's wradio668@gmail.com. And if there's something you want me to talk about, yeah, I will talk about it. Just let me know in that email. Thanks for watching. I am Dr. Canute White, and that was Learn a Bit, a segment of Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. Take care now.